This is Chris from Play Comics, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 137, Michael Jackson songs. Hey, I'm Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. You'll find Derek on Twitter at Amaron_DM, and I'm on Twitter at CMcBrien, and popgoesyourworld.com is our website with all of our contact information. Derek, how are you, my friend? And also, what's going on in pop culture in your world tonight, my friend?
Hey, Chris, I am doing very well. How are you doing this week?
I'm good.
Okay, good to hear.
Pop culture with you. Life is good.
Yes. Well, things are good. I've actually had an opportunity to start catching up on some of the pop culture things on my PVR, things that have dropped on the streaming services. And I've watched a couple of really good things this week that I can't wait to recommend to people. The first is a movie that I don't know if you've seen this movie, Chris. It's called Inside Man. It was from, I want to say 2006, so you probably haven't, directed by Spike Lee.
No. In fact, I've never even heard of it.
Okay. Well, I think we know a movie that I'll be recommending to you in the very near future then. Inside Man stars Denzel Washington along with a huge cast of fantastic performers. I hadn't seen this movie in a while. I knew it was one that I enjoyed the last time I watched it, but it had been, like I said, it had been a couple of years. It came on one of the movie channels. I thought, I'll give it a watch. I forgot how much I really enjoyed this movie. And then I was messaging with my brother the other day, and I said, hey, I just watched Inside Man. And he goes, oh, yeah, so did I. He goes, it's one of my all-time favorite movies ever. And I'm like, wow, okay, good to know. So, yeah, Inside Man, a good revisit. So fans of the show, that'll be coming up soon. I'll get Chris to watch it, especially now that he said he doesn't know anything about it. The other thing I watched was a documentary series that dropped on Netflix a few weeks ago. I'm only getting caught up on it now, about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, called The Last Dance. Chris, are you familiar with this?
I've heard of it. I saw it on social media, but I haven't watched it or anything yet. How was it?
What I've seen so far has been phenomenal. I mean, I'm not a fan of basketball. I don't watch basketball. I don't really understand basketball. It's just not my thing. If this was hockey, that'd be a whole other story. But Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. He's one of the most famous athletes ever, the best at what he does. He's a pop culture icon to a certain extent. He's just an all-around famous individual. And so I was, as soon as they're like, oh, there's this thing on Michael Jordan. I'm like, I'm in. I'm all in. Fine. And just the quality is so good. The way they put this together, like ESPN knows how to do a documentary. If you've ever watched any of the 30 for 30 documentaries, they are usually top notch. This is no exception. It's 10 episodes. They're about an hour a piece. I believe they're releasing them 2 episodes at a time, per week. And I believe the last 2 episodes drop this weekend. So by the time the last 2 come out, I should be caught up. I'm 3 episodes in. It's so good so far. And again, as a non-basketball guy, I don't really know a lot about any of what they're talking about. So it's all new to me. But I have talked to some people who are big basketball fans who do know a lot of the stuff. And they even said, they're like, even though I know the broad strokes or I remember watching some of this, they're like, it is just so well done. It is so good. And they have interviews now with all the people, the coaches and the general managers and the agents and the players and the teammates and the opponents. Like they have such a strong credibility in the industry, ESPN does, and the people putting this documentary together, that everyone wanted to be in it. So it's not like, sometimes they do a documentary and they're like, so-and-so was not able to participate in this. And so you don't really get to hear their side of it. They have yet to talk about somebody who hasn't been on the show talking about their points, whether they're positive or negative. But so far, it's just, I can't say enough good things about it. By next week, I'll have watched them all. But yeah,
the one thing that I always heard about Michael Jordan was that he was like a massive trash talker on the court. I'm assuming that's going to come up in the documentary at some point.
From what I've seen, it's not so. From what they're depicting, anyway, it doesn't seem like it's so much trash talk as much as it's confidence in his ability. Like, because he is absolutely and clearly the best guy on the court, he's able to demand more of his teammates. And not in a way where, you're like, I'm better than you, but as much as he's like, hey, do you want to win this? Then you're going to, you got to do what I'm telling you to do, because I know what I'm talking about here. And it's so far it's fantastic. I mean, cool. There are a lot of things where some of these players are not shown in the greatest light, but hey, that's the way the world works. And it's nice to see they're not just trying to paint it with their happy brush and go, oh, everything was great, and that's why they won all these championships. It's like, these guys had lives, and they're legitimate characters in this story. And yeah, it's great. I think you'd really like it, Chris. I don't know if your wife would like it so much, but give it a watch. Just watch the first episode. If you don't like the first episode, you're not going to like this, but I think you're going to really see the quality of this program within the first 45 minutes. You'll be like, I'm in.
My wife is already mad enough at me for making her watch movies that she doesn't like for this podcast. So there's that. A couple things I wanted to mention. So a couple of episodes ago, we did a podcast on cover songs, our favorite cover songs of all time. And in that episode, you mentioned Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And his name was like Israel Kamikawali or something like that. And I'd never heard of that version. And so one of the cool things about doing this show, as I always mention, is you open up my eyes to, pop culture of, this generation, stuff that I don't exactly watch on my own or listen to on my own. So I'm really glad for that. And I'd never even heard of this version. I just knew the version from, Wizard of Oz. That was it.
Wizard of Oz, yeah.
And so I watched it on YouTube. And it was really, really good. I could have probably lived without seeing a 600-pound Hawaiian man shirtless, but the song was really, really good. So there was that. And I also want to mention, because we lost some people recently, unfortunately, Brian Dennehy and Jerry Stiller both died.
Yes.
And they were both, in a lot of stuff that I really, really enjoyed. And also one that kind of just slipped by almost unnoticed was Roy from Siegfried and Roy. The Vegas act with the white tigers?
I'm Mr. Vegas. Yeah, I knew.
Yeah, Roy died. Now, the official ruling was that he died from the coronavirus. But I think we probably know who was really behind it was
Carol Baskin. Carol Baskin.
Oh, jeez.
You know what that
is? Yes, I've seen the Tiger King.
Oh, you have seen Tiger King. The last time we talked, you hadn't seen Tiger King.
No, I broke down and watched it. Everyone else was watching it, and hey, I'm starved for new content. So, and I love a documentary, probably more than the next guy. So,
did you like Tiger King?
It was okay. I mean, It was certainly the thing I heard most before I started watching it was it's like a train wreck. You can't look away. You want to look away, but you want to also see the carnage, and that was pretty apt description.
Yeah, it was. So. Exactly.
And actually, Chris, I heard that there's talks of making a Tiger King movie. And they have cast none other than Nicolas Cage.
I heard that.
As the Tiger King, or at least that's who they want. I don't know if this is all legit. That's the story.
He's Joe Exotic. Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, I heard that.
And I thought to myself, wow, that is perfect casting.
Like, I saw on Netflix they have a new episode on Tiger King. It's Joel McHale is like interviewing some of the people that were in it. So we watched it. It wasn't very good, but
that's what I heard, so I didn't bother.
Yeah, don't waste your time with it. It's not that good.
Okay.
Okay, before we get started, though, it is time for...
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Now, as you know, Derek, I try to keep it related, to our topic for the podcast. Okay. So here we go. Derek, what was the name of Michael Jackson's clothing store?
I have no idea.
Billie Jeans.
No, jeez.
I have another one too.
Oh, of course you do. Of course.
What did the mother say to Michael Jackson at the beach?
I have no idea.
I can't.
Jeez. Oh man. Chris, family show.
Calm blue ocean.
There's a lot of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Smokey and the Bandit shirt for you.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad. Boof from Teen Wolf.
Hot as a pistol.
Wow, I know. That's pretty amazing.
I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd.
It's a shock that you never got more girls in high school.
Calm blue ocean. Calm blue ocean. I don't know. That's a lot to unpack, Chris. Okay, give me a second here.
Okay, anyway, so that's that. You actually came up with the topic for this week, which was a pretty good one. You and I were going back and forth. I said, what are we going to talk about on the podcast this week? And you had mentioned how in the past we had done an episode on our favorite Queen songs, and we really enjoyed doing that. And you said, I'd like to take a look at Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson, obviously king of pop, tons of songs, and we're going to get into all that. And so, Derek, you kind of came up with that topic. Before we get into our top 5 list, we decided to put together a top 5 list of our top 5 favorite Michael Jackson songs, lots to pick from. Do you want to just touch base on why you wanted to go down this road with Michael Jackson songs?
Sure. I'll give you a little blurb, and then I want to do a couple of honorable mentions before we jump into the real list. So, as you mentioned, the last time we did this on a specific artist, it was Queen. And this was all around the time that the Bohemian Rhapsody movie was gaining momentum. And again, Queen, one of the all-time greatest rock bands, classic rock bands, depending on how you want to classify them. Freddie Mercury, arguably one of the best lead vocalists and performers ever. And there was a lot to choose from there, a lot of praise, and there was no shortage of great songs, no shortage of greatness. And I started thinking, like, what other artists might we visit in that kind of a way? And we had already talked previously about someone like Prince. I know Yancey is a huge Prince fan, so we said, well, maybe we see if you can get Yancey to come back on. We'll talk about our favorite Prince songs. So that's something we can do down the road.
If we didn't invite Yancey on to do Prince, he would probably kill us.
Yeah, I think he would. He'd come all the way to Canada despite quarantine regulations, and yeah, he'd stomp us for sure.
Yeah. Luckily, we just banned guns, so it's all good.
Yeah. So and again, there's a few artists, but you want to look for an artist that is big enough to have a music catalog that you and I are not just going to simply pick the same 5 songs, either because they have enough to choose from that they have more than 5 really good songs, or that it's not just like, well, they have 20 good songs, but these 5 are absolutely head and shoulders above the rest. And so, who better than Michael Jackson? He's the king of pop. A lot of people would argue, and probably very correctly, that he is the greatest musician that ever lived. The guy sings, the guy dances, the guy, he knows how to put on a show, probably better than anybody else, or did. I mean, R.I.P. Michael Jackson. But he has a music legacy that is unlike anyone else. He was, for the years when he was in his prime, he was the most recognizable figure worldwide. We're not just talking North America and English-speaking countries. We're talking globally. He would go anywhere in the world and people would know him. I remember years and years ago, I had a teacher, I think it was in high school or university, and he said, like, there was a couple of years, he goes, I went and taught English in like South Korea or the Philippines or Japan or something for a year. A lot of people did that. They took a year off. They went and taught English in somewhere in Asia. And he said, I remember not having any teaching experience. I went in the first day and I sort of said to the students, like, what can I teach you? What can I? And he had some suggestions, and he said they all wanted to learn the words for Michael Jackson songs. That's how the kids wanted to learn English, was through the music of Michael Jackson. He was shocked at some of these places. He's like, they were pretty far off the map. And yet Michael Jackson had this far reach where everybody knew who he was. And so when we started talking about what to do the next show on, I said, well, hey, there are no bigger performers than Michael Jackson. He's got a huge catalog. Let's see if we can come up with let's see if we can narrow it down to just 5, and let's see if we can come up with a couple of lists here. And that's sort of where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a little history. In the early to mid 80s, I was a metalhead. I mentioned that before on the podcast here. I liked heavy metal music. I was into Ozzy and Quiet Riot and bands like that, Rat and stuff. And as a result, I think it's pretty safe to say that I wasn't the biggest Michael Jackson fan at the time. It just kind of clashed with the whole metal stuff. So, in fact, I think it might even be safe to say I hated Michael Jackson at that time. But as the 80s wore on, I was able to kind of come around a bit and see just how influential he was on music. I mean, he was the king of pop, right? He was, like you mentioned, the biggest superstar in the world, and definitely in the 80s. And regardless of what I felt about Michael Jackson then or even now, I think you have to admit that he was probably the single biggest influence on the music industry that's ever lived. So no matter what I might think about Michael Jackson as a person, with all the shady stuff surrounding his personal life, that's not what this is about. We're talking about his music and his music only. So with that being said, we decided we'd run down our top 5 Michael Jackson songs. Derek, do you want to take us away? What's your number 5 Michael Jackson song?
Well, before we get into that, as I mentioned, I have a couple of honorable mentions.
Yes, please. What are they?
Before we put our list together, we lay down a couple of ground rules. Now, again, sometimes we don't necessarily have the same ground rules, but this is one I said to you right off the bat, as I said, Chris, you can't put anything from the Jackson 5 on the list. It has to be after Michael Jackson left the Jackson 5 and went on his own. Anything after that is fair game, which I know I got a few sad-faced emoticons from you, and you were all like, oh, I had a couple of those on my list. So, unfortunately...
I'll mention those as my honorable mentions as well.
Honorable mentions,
yeah,
sure.
It's all good.
The other one I said was, let's acknowledge, but exclude from our list, We Are the World. This is the song that was written for the African Relief in, 1985? It was around the time of Live Aid. We Are the World, where they brought together all the performers from the U.S., all the top, basically everyone who was a big musician at that time. They invited them to come and sing on this song, and then all the proceeds went to charity.
And Quincy Jones did the whole thing, yep.
Yeah, but Michael Jackson had a writing credit on that. So I thought, well, we should acknowledge the scope of that song. I don't necessarily think musically it makes the top 5 Michael Jackson songs ever, but I think it's important to acknowledge the importance of that song.
Yeah, sorry, just jumping. I didn't even think it was the best song at the time for African Relief. I thought the Canadian one was better.
I like the British one myself.
That was a good one too.
Yeah. And the other one I want to mention, and this is sort of a sharp left turn from what I just talked about. Mm-hmm. Many people may not realize this. Michael Jackson wrote the song Do the Bartman from The Simpsons.
Right.
So, again, not a quote-unquote Michael Jackson song, because he doesn't actually perform on the song. I think he does some background vocals. But the idea was Michael Jackson was a huge fan of The Simpsons right from the outset. And at the time, The Simpsons were the number 1 show on TV. And Michael Jackson did a voice cameo on, I think it was like the first or second season, one of the very first celebrities to do a voice cameo. At the time when it was embarrassing to do those, so the performers didn't use their real names, and which they reference in a subsequent episode where they're like, it was full of guest stars, Dustin Hoffman, Michael Jackson. They did use their real names, but you could tell it was them. Mm-hmm. And anyway, Michael Jackson went to the people at The Simpsons and said, I want to write a song for The Simpsons that you can put out as a single so that Bart Simpson has the number 1 show and the number 1 song at the same time. And he did. He wrote Do the Bartman. And although Do the Bartman was never technically released as a single, it did sell very, very well. And it's, again, one of those ones that's, a secret, almost like a secret legacy of Michael Jackson that never gets mentioned. So I thought before we go into the really good stuff, I wanted to make sure that got mentioned. Chris, honorable mentions?
Like you mentioned, you said we had to exclude Jackson 5 songs and we had to stick to Michael Jackson solo stuff. I really liked ABC, I Want You Back, and Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. All of which, by the way, have been sampled by artists in the 90s and 2000s. But I really like those songs, but I couldn't include those, but I did want to give them a shout out.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some of the Jackson 5 stuff was really good. So
good.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
So why don't you kick us off? Your number 5 Michael Jackson song. All right. What do you got?
My number 5 is Man in the Mirror. This is from the album Bad. Yeah. It's not like you think Michael Jackson, you think song and dance band. This is going to have a rhythm. You're going to want to tap your foot and sing along and get on the dance floor. Man in the Mirror, not so much that kind of song. One of the things that I liked about Man in the Mirror is just the lyrics, like the message of it, right? It's the whole idea of if you want to change, if you want to make a change in this world, you got to start by changing yourself. And that's the whole thing, right? I'm starting with the man in the mirror. That's the guy I want to have the change with. It's like, the lyrics of the song talk about how he sees people who are less privileged. He, realizes the character in the song realizes he has versus those who have not, and feels bad about it. And then has this epiphany of, well, I think in order for me to better the world, I need to start by accepting what I can do for myself. And it's just such a positive message. it's one of the rare Michael Jackson songs where the video doesn't even have Michael Jackson in it. So many of his music videos, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this in the course of the podcast, are more like short films. And it's not just Michael Jackson in the song. There's usually like a whole production and famous people and famous directors and all the rest of that. This one is a series of images of people who made change in the world. Most of them very positive change, but there are some people, like I believe Adolf Hitler is shown in the video as well. And again, it talks about how confidence and self-image and the things you can do to change the world, ultimately for the better is the point. But it's this really positive message. It's such a positive message, and the song is it's like almost like a gospel song, like the way it's performed. It's it's really good. Let me give you a couple of the stats. I got stats on all my songs. So Man on the Mirror reached #1 on the Billboard charts. It was there for 2 weeks. It was Michael Jackson's 10th #1 single. It was the 4th consecutive #1 single in the United States off of the Bad album. And it reached in 2009 after Michael Jackson died. A lot of his music was re-released, and in the UK, Man on the Mirror debuted at #2 on their charts in 2009 after Michael Jackson died. It was one of the ones that made it back into the mainstream charts. So my #5 pick, Man in the Mirror.
That's a really good song. The one thing about that song that really stands out in my mind was, I want to say in the summer of '87, I drove to Florida. My mom drove us to Florida, me and my sisters. We went down there to spend time with my grandparents. They had gone down there for a little while, and we went to Disney and stuff. And that song was on the radio the whole drive there and back. It was just so popular. I remember that song a lot. Okay, my #5. I'm going to go with Wanna Be Startin' Something. So the album Thriller opens up with this song. And what a great way to open such an iconic album. The title of this song alone speaks to the fact that Michael Jackson, he was going to go on to start a revolution in the music industry. And with this opening song on the album, he shows that he's ready to kind of start his ascent to being the king of pop, because he's going to be starting something here. And this song, for me, sort of finalizes the transition of Michael Jackson from the 1970s to the 1980s. It's still got elements of disco in it, but it also opens the door to the type of music that sort of defines the 80s. He actually originally wrote this song for his sister LaToya to perform. And
really?
Funny enough, a song like this in the hands of a lesser vocalist would just come off as like a repetitive song, because it's kind of a repetitive song and it doesn't have a lot of flair to it. But with Michael Jackson singing it, he really makes something out of it. If you go back and listen to this song, his vocals, that's what makes this song pop. I really like the song a lot, and it's #5 on my list. So,
and if I remember correctly, this is the one where at the end it's the Mama Say, Mama Sa, Mama Kusa. That's this one, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so there's sections of this song. I think we'll find this with almost every song on this list. It has been sampled. So Rihanna had a hit single, Please Don't Stop the Music, and she sampled huge sections of this song. So for people who maybe aren't as familiar with this, because this obviously isn't one of Michael Jackson's biggest songs.
No, it's not.
The beat and the sampling has been reused in more recent hits. So,
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, #4.
My
What do you
number
got?
4. All right. Some people might have this as their #1. I'm going to put it on my #4, and that is Beat It. So this is off of the Thriller album. Let me back up a second. So when I was a younger person and I first started getting into music, it was 1981, 1982-ish. I can't remember exactly. And I remember one year for Christmas, I got like my own little radio with a cassette deck so I could tape songs off the radio. And I had a record player. And so, of course, you get a record player, you got to get some records. And one of the very first records I ever got was Michael Jackson's Thriller. I still have it.
Nice.
It's totally beat up. So unfortunately, I know some of those old ones are worth money. Mine is definitely not worth any money. It's very well listened to, very well loved.
But it's a collectible.
Well, yeah, sure.
For you.
For me, yeah, for sure. I wouldn't get rid of it for anything. And I'm sure if I could find myself a turntable, it would probably still sound pretty good. But I remember, having this album and listening to all the songs over and over and over again. Beat It just being one of the many hits off of this album. But at the time, one of the other albums I got a couple years later, or around the same time, I guess it might have been a little around that time, was Van Halen's 1984 album. And so I was a fan of Van Halen as well. Like you, I like sort of the heavier stuff, but I was still pretty young, so very influential. Listened to a little bit of everything. And when I learned that Eddie Van Halen had done the guitar solo on Beat It, that just sort of ramped it up even another notch for me, where it's like, oh my God, two of my favorite performers on the same song. How does it get any better? It's this, it's one of the ones where it's one of the very first Michael Jackson videos I ever saw. The idea of sort of the dance fighting choreography. It's, again, you sort of describe it to someone who's never seen it. It sounds a little silly and hokey, but it worked. One of the things that Michael Jackson's staple is the choreography, the dancing, it's great. It's this combination of like rock and funk and disco. It's like this real amalgamation of sounds that sort of brings Michael Jackson into multiple genres, right? Like you said, coming out of the 70s, he was very much the disco sound. It was all about, like, what can you dance to? And whereas Beat It has this combination of, like, synthesizers and electric guitars. It was this weird yet beautiful amalgamation of these forms. Here, I have some notes here specifically about Van Halen. So, as we mentioned, Eddie Van Halen did the guitar solo. Apparently, he did it free of charge, and apparently, a lot of people felt that he was taken advantage of, that he was tricked into doing this for free. But apparently the quote from him is he said he did it as a favor to Michael Jackson, and he doesn't feel like it was something that he got taken advantage of for. A couple of quotes here from the Wikipedia page. It says, Beat It has been cited as one of the most successful, recognized, awarded, and celebrated songs in the history of popular music. Both the song and the video have had a large impact on pop culture. Beat It received a 1984 Grammy Award for Record of the Year, Best Male Rock Vocal Performance, and 2 American Music Awards. And I think that, and of course it was number 1 on the Billboard charts for 3 weeks, the third single from the Thriller album. And I think no mention of Beat It would be complete without mentioning that Weird Al Yankovic did a parody called Eat It,
yes,
which was also a huge hit.
It was.
In my mind, as a young person, if Weird Al's covering your song and he's doing a parody of it, you've obviously made it. Like, parody doesn't work if people don't understand what you are making a parody of. And that's the one thing I've always loved about Weird Al Yankovic, is he really just has this sixth sense for saying, like, this is either going to be a huge hit, I'm going to parody it, or this is becoming a great hit, I got to get a parody out while it's still popular. Eat It, certainly one of Weird Al's early success stories. Mm-hmm. And again, this is one where Michael Jackson very quickly became known for fantastic videos. And of course, Weird Al, doing the whole parody thing, parodies the video, mm-hmm. which he will do again and again for a number of other Michael Jackson songs. It's just, Beat It is one of those songs that you hear it come on the radio, you hear that those first few, I don't even know what is the instrument would make that sound at the beginning. It's almost like a gong, but it's like a synthesized gong. Like,
yeah, I think it was all synth, if I'm not mistaken. But
you hear it, and it's like, it's so different than any, like, when you hear that come on the radio or you hear that come over your streaming service, it's like, right away. It's like, oh my God, this is Michael Jackson. We're going to be in for a treat for these next 4 minutes as we hear Beat It. So my number 4, Beat It.
When I think of the song Beat It, I always am taken back in time. Whereas, we mentioned before, music takes you back to a place in time. And whenever I hear Beat It, I always think of being in the arcade. I don't know why, because in the arcade, in my local arcade in the small town I grew up in, they always played music. And I always think of that song playing when I was like in there playing like Pac-Man and that kind of stuff. Okay, my number 4. Now, I've said this before when it comes to music, but also when it comes to different decades. I've always felt like the 70s had a style of music, and the 80s definitely had a style of music. The 90s had a style of music. And there was also a transition between the decades back then. I think the 2000s and the 2010s, for me, all just kind of blend together without much distinction. Of course, maybe that's just me being the crotchety old man. I don't know. But for me, as the 70s were winding down and transitioning into the 80s, one song that always sort of stood out for me as a song that kind of was there to bridge the gap between the two decades was Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. It's off Michael Jackson's 1979 album, Off the Wall. And for me, anyway, it embodies everything that music was all about at that time. It's clearly a disco song, obviously, and it also gives you a bit of a glimpse into what Michael Jackson was going to do in the 80s and just how influential that he was going to become as an artist. I'd say this is pretty much the first time that the world got to see what Michael was like as a solo artist, coming off, the Jackson 5 stuff and stuff, but as a songwriter and a singer, with the music video that they made for this song. We also got a chance to see what kind of a dancer he was. So this song gave the world a taste of what was to come with Michael Jackson. And also, when I think of the late 70s, I think of one thing, and that's disco. And when I think of disco, I always think of this song. This song is just probably the biggest disco song ever, the best disco song ever, and it makes my list on here. So it's number 4.
Nice. That's a good pick. This definitely was creeping in. So, full disclosure, you and I discussed before that we put our list together. We said, why don't we put it together a top 10, even though we're actually only going to use our top 5? This is in my top 10 and was very, again, my order kept shuffling around, and this almost made it into my top 5. I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. And like I said, I listen to a lot of 80s retro channels. This song creeps on there more than it should, considering that those channels bill themselves as like, we're all 80s, but they do play some 70s and some early 90s. This one, just like you said, I think you nailed it on the head. It's like a transition song. Yes, it's a disco song, but we get a sense of what Michael Jackson's going to do in the 80s from this, and it's so good. And it's definitely a toe tapper. You hear it and you're like, you just start bopping your head and tapping your foot and going, oh man, I'm going to dance.
If it wasn't, when I was putting together this list, if it wasn't for the fact that he has so many other good songs, this would have been number 1. Any other artist, this would probably be their number 1 song of all time. But he's got so many other good songs. It's so hard to do it. But no, I agree. Total transition song. All right, number 3. What do you got?
All right. My number 3, this might be a bit of a cheat, and if it is, too bad. I'm still doing it. My number 3 is Say, Say, Say. Oh, Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney, yeah.
So not a solo Michael Jackson song, but definitely put out well after he left the Jackson 5.
Yeah, no, it qualifies, I think.
Okay, good. I know sometimes I make these rules and then you call me out for breaking them.
I'm a little bit more flexible than you are, apparently.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's all good.
So Say, Say, Say was actually the second collaboration with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. They did their The Girl Is Mine, which was on the Thriller album. This one came out the next year. What year was Thriller, by the way? Do you happen to know? Was it 81 or 82?
It was 82.
82. So this was released in 1983. So this was the following year. It was on Paul McCartney's album. So the first collaboration was on Michael Jackson's album. The second collaboration was on Paul McCartney's album. The album was called Pipes of Peace, which I didn't know until today. I had to look that up. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot, or not necessarily debuted, but it reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was there for 6 weeks. This was Michael Jackson's 7th top 10 hit in 1983, which is crazy. That broke a record that until then had been held by the Beatles and Elvis Presley. So by 1983, Michael Jackson is now on the same platform as the Beatles and Elvis Presley. Like that just blows my mind. And I mean, there was no stopping this guy. Like he was incredible. Say, 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 again, it's very much an 80s pop song. It's got Paul McCartney being a Beatle himself is no stranger to success. The guy knows how to write a song. The guy knows how to sing. Excuse me. And again, another one where they had some fun with the video. It's got a nice little story going on there. Paul McCartney's wife has a small part in the video. Michael Jackson's sister has a small part in the video. It's just one of these feel good songs. Excuse me, where both performers pretty much are on equal footing, and you can almost look at it as like almost like a passing of the torch kind of thing, right? Like by this point, Paul McCartney's solo career is sort of coming to an end, right? He'd done his Beatles thing, and I mean, like, you're never going to be bigger than that. Then he was with Wings, and he had a lot of success with that. And it's like, at this point now, it's just like, okay, well, what's next for Paul McCartney?
I think at that time, Give My Regards to Broad Street came out. It wasn't a big hit. Yeah, I think he was winding down. You're right.
Exactly. And again, he's obviously a lot older than Michael Jackson, but he brings experience. Like I said, he knows the music industry. He's got a phenomenal sense of what the musical trends are. He's able to keep up, if not direct musical trends. And Michael Jackson is like, you got Paul McCartney sort of on the downswing and Michael Jackson on this huge upswing, and these collaborations, like, this is perfect. Like, you couldn't ask for two better performers, musicians, songwriters to come together to work together. I can only imagine, this either one of two things. They had a blast doing this and it was so much fun, or it was the most difficult thing they've ever done because they're both so good at what they do. I'd like to think it's the first one where they probably both had a lot of fun with it, because this is their second collaboration. If they didn't enjoy the first one, I can't imagine they would have gone back to that well. So this definitely for me makes my top five. One of the things that I want to bring up about this is later Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney had a bit of a falling out, and it was over the catalog rights of the old Beatles songs.
Right.
So I have a little quote here from my research I was doing this afternoon. So let me just read this. It says, while they were writing and performing this, Michael Jackson stayed at the home of Paul McCartney and his wife during the recording sessions, and they all became friends. While at the dining table one night, Paul McCartney brought out a book that displayed all the songs to which he owned the publishing rights. And Paul McCartney says, "This is the way to make big money," he informed Michael Jackson. "Every time someone records one of these songs, I get paid. Every time someone plays these songs on the radio or in a live performance, I get paid." And then it says McCartney's words influenced Jackson's later purchase of the ATV music publishing catalog in 1985. Basically, Michael Jackson takes this incredible and valuable lesson from Paul McCartney. Unfortunately for Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson buys all the Beatles stuff. So they have a bit of a falling out there, but it's just a demonstration of Paul McCartney sort of passing that torch to the next generation and not, opening his eyes to, it's great to sing, it's great to perform, it's great to get paid to do this, but you want to make some big bucks, you got to look a little more broad. And that's where we are. Say is my number 3.
Very good. Okay, my number 3. If you asked 100 people what their favorite Michael Jackson song was, 99 would probably say this one. So it's definitely the textbook answer for number 1. But I want to just try and break that mold a bit, because you always accuse me of being the textbook answer guy. So I put it down at my number 3 for good reason, and I'll mention my next two as we get to them. But it's Thriller. Probably the song that's most associated with Michael Jackson. Obviously, title song on the iconic album of the same name. It is the greatest music video of all time. Directed by John Landis back in the day when he was at the top of his game as a Hollywood movie director. I think it embodies the early 80s like no other song does.
Agreed.
It's appeared in like countless pop culture references, movies like Revenge of the Nerds and 13 Going on 30. When you think of the 80s, you think of Thriller. And when you think of Michael Jackson, you think of Thriller. When you think of music videos, you think of Thriller. It's the biggest of the biggest songs of all time. It's the signature Michael Jackson song. All that being said, like I said, it should be number 1 on the list.
I was going to say, why is this not your number 1, Chris? You're giving me all the reasons that this should be number 1. Give me a reason why it's not. Give me a reason why it's not for you.
The reason it's not for me is because, as we've often said on this podcast before, these lists aren't just about being the textbook answers. Instead, we're talking about our personal favorites. So it's only number 3 for me. Maybe my top 2 will surprise you. We'll see. But Thriller is, for me, the number 3 Michael Jackson song.
Wow. Okay.
On to your number 2.
We're going to revisit this a little bit.
For sure.
We get down my list, but I got to say I am surprised yet not surprised that that's not your number 1. Mm-hmm. So, okay. I'm kind of curious what you got as number 2, number 1 now. That's even more interesting to me.
I'll explain them when we get to them. Yeah.
All right. My number 2 is the song Smooth Criminal. So this is the second time I'm referencing Smooth Criminal in under a month on this show, because when we did our cover songs a couple of episodes back, the cover version of Smooth Criminal by Alien Ant Farm made my top 5 then. And so when I was doing my Michael Jackson list, I really had to acknowledge that part of the reason I liked the cover so much was because I liked the original so much. And so, again, we'll start with a little bit of the stats. Smooth Criminal made it to number 7 on the Billboard 100. And it was the 6th top 10 single from the Bad album. Now, this keeps blowing me away with Michael Jackson. He releases Bad, and he's got 6 or 7 singles off the album. He releases Thriller. He's got 6 or 7 singles off the album. Like, this just doesn't happen anymore. This barely happened then. But just the fact that the songs were so good that you could go that deep onto an album and pull the 7th song and go, we had six hit singles. Do you think we could go for 7? Sure. Let's throw Smooth Criminal out there.
It's the consistency, of him being able to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
When you think of Kelly Clarkson when she came out with the one album, had like 8 singles on it. They were all really, really good, but not able to do it album after album after album like Michael Jackson did.
I remember watching a documentary on Def Leppard of all bands, and it was a thing about their album Hysteria, which I also think had 7 singles. And one of the things
there was a lot. That was
there was a
popular.
lot. I mean, they didn't all reach number 1, but they were, again, even now when you listen to those 80s channels, they play a lot of Def Leppard. I remember they were interviewing them, and they were saying one of the mantras they would recite over and over again when they were putting the album together is all killer, no filler. Because at the time, what a lot of bands would do is they'd have 2 or maybe 3, usually just 2, good, like really good songs. And the band knew it, the producers knew it, the record company knew it. They're like, these are your singles, this one and this one. And then they're like, put whatever you want on the rest of the album because nothing's getting released. And people would buy the full album. You'd buy 10 songs, but you'd really only want to listen to 1 or 2. And so that was what Def Leppard says. They're like, look, we're not doing this to the fans. We're not doing this as artists. These are all going to be great songs. And I like Michael Jackson more than anybody else. You look at his track record, clearly that was his mind. He may not have used those words, but it's like an athlete who wants to win every game. You don't just say, well, we made the playoffs, let's cruise control the last 2 weeks of the season. It's like, no. Michael Jackson, he wants every song to be a number 1 song. And my God, he almost had that with most of these albums. So anyway, back to Smooth Criminal. So let's see. Reached number 7 on the 100. Rolling Stone magazine ranked this song 6th on their list of the 50 best Michael Jackson songs of all time. They wrote that it was his best blend of R&B groove and rock edginess, and it was a turning point in his shift towards darker, harder, edgier material. Let's see. It was, again, it's sort of that combination of dance and funk and rock to a lesser extent. Again, it was very different than other songs that Michael Jackson had put out, even other songs in his album. Like you listen to Bad, the title track, and Smooth Criminal, like those songs sound very different. They're designed to be very different songs. A lot of bands you listen to a Madonna album from the 80s, all the songs sound like Madonna. They're all the same, and they're all great. With this one, this is a different kind of song. And I think because it had a little bit more of that rock feel, that's probably why I liked it a little more. Because, again, I like bands like Def Leppard and Van Halen that I've already mentioned. And so I think it maybe struck a little bit of a chord with me more than some of the other songs off of the Bad album. Like, honestly, Bad didn't make my top 10. Like this, it's a good song. It's a good video. It got parodied by Weird Al, which
yes.
we've already said is a, that's a big checkbox for me. But no, I couldn't. Smooth Criminal for me, in my opinion, is the best song on the Bad album. The other thing I want to mention with this, like so many other Michael Jackson songs, is the video. The video was great. Again, they didn't call them videos; they called them short films. And it was like this, supposed to be like this Prohibition era speakeasy. Again, the whole idea of Smooth Criminal is it's like the criminal that's dressed in a full suit with the shoes with the spats and the hat, and it's like it's this style. And Michael Jackson, more so than so many other artists, always exuded style. In the videos especially, he always had a look, and it was always like, wow, he looks fantastic. And the look became just as important as the music. And so you have this really interesting sort of like a bar or a speakeasy where he shows up and there's this whole scene. And again, it's played out like a little movie. One of the things that's very important to note, and I can't remember if we talked about this on a previous show, is with the Smooth Criminal song, there's a whole part in the dance routine in the video where the performers do this lean. They call it the anti-gravity lean. And so this is what it says here. The performers, including Michael Jackson, do the anti-gravity lean that appears physically impossible. The dancers lean forward 45 degrees with their backs straight and their feet flat on the floor. They hold the pose, and then they return upright. The lean moves the body's center of mass farther than it can support. So when they did this for the music video, apparently what they ended up doing was they used cables, because in a movie, it's a movie, you get special effects. But when Michael Jackson went on the road to perform this, he didn't want to be restricted. He wanted to be able to give fans in the live shows the same experience they got when they watched the music video. So he wanted to figure out a way to actually do this on stage for real without harnesses or special effects. And so what they did was they created special shoes that have like a little slot in the heel of the shoe, and on the stage these little pins would come up, and the performers could put the heels of the shoes in the pins, and it basically locked their shoes onto the stage, and they could lean. Which you think, oh well, of course, then that's cheating. But they spoke with like physical trainers and choreographers and stuff, and they said like, yeah, even though they had the pegs in the feet to lock their shoes in place, they said that the amount of core strength in your abdomen to be able to do that lean every night for a concert, like the performances were probably a year long. He's doing that every night or every other night. They said like it's just an incredible demonstration of athleticism and physical ability. And despite Michael Jackson's fantastic ability as a singer and a songwriter and a performer, you can't underrate his ability as a dancer and as an athlete and the physical requirements to be good at that. And so again, for that reason, along with all these other ones, Smooth Criminal is my number 2.
Oh, I like it. Okay, my number 2. I'm going to go with Black or White. So when this song came out, it was right around the time that I was coming out of my heavy metal phase. So I was able to finally appreciate Michael Jackson's music a lot more than I ever did, before this. So it came out in 1991 on the Dangerous album. The music video was considered absolutely revolutionary when it came out because it used computer morphing technology, the transition between different people's faces, and which was the whole message of the song, really. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. There's always been something about this song that just kind of hit home for me. I love the message of the song. The opening guitar riff is super clean. It's super catchy. It's the perfect hook for pretty much almost like a perfect song that's got a little bit of everything. It's got great melody. It's got great verses, great chorus, great message. And it also lends itself perfectly for satire, funny enough, because right around this time is when Michael started transitioning himself physically. So it kind of lent itself as a bit of a joke, as whether Michael himself was black or white, But for me, it's always been one of his more underrated songs. I don't think people rank it as high as it should when they think of Michael Jackson songs. I love it. It's right near the top. It would probably be my number 1 of his songs. I like it that much. But my number 1 is a bit more textbook in nature. We'll get to that in a bit. And the other thing I'll say about the song, I like how his earlier songs, and I mentioned like Wanna Be Certain Something and Can't Stop Till You Get Enough, were like a transition between decades, between the 70s and 80s. Black or White felt like a transition from the 80s to the 90s. It's just a great song that I've always loved, and it's number 2 on my list. One of my favorite Michael Jackson songs. I really like it.
Yeah, agreed. It's good. I mean, it did not make my top 10. But again, with so many good ones to choose from, they can't all make the top 10. Right. I'm glad you brought up the video. It definitely had that whole thing with the morphing. I think that was the first time most people in pop culture had ever seen that before. And obviously that's something that went on to be used in tons of other stuff. And that's the thing with Michael Jackson, right? Is he's that visionary.
Yep, groundbreaking.
To be able to, not that he's the one creating it, but to have somebody bring it to his attention and have him recognize that he can use that in his video to help visualize what the lyrics are already saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great.
What the hell is your number 1 Michael Jackson song? I'm dying to know.
Well, I went with the textbook. My number 1 is Thriller. How can it not be? I couldn't believe yours wasn't number 1 is Thriller. So, okay. I just got to pause here. Okay. So what blew me away with this was I didn't remember that the song Thriller was the 7th song released off of the Thriller album. You would assume
that would be first.
Called Thriller. Which single do you want? Well, let's really be creative and release Thriller as our first song. It makes the most sense. But no, they released 6 other songs before they went to Thriller. I can't believe that. Like, maybe you get a slick record executive who's like, well, we know Thriller's going to be a hit. Why don't we put something a little, out there that we're not 100% sure of? And that way, if it doesn't really go like gangbusters, we know we've got Thriller as our backup. And that'll, just put us right back into that number 1 position. But no, they released 6 other songs before Thriller. Just blew my mind. And Thriller never reached number 1. Number 4 was as high as it got on the Billboard charts. Again, whether maybe people by that point had Michael Jackson fatigue, they'd already been listening to 6 other singles. I got to think everyone and their mother owned a copy of the Thriller album. So even though it hadn't been released as a single, most people by then were very familiar with the song. So when it finally started to get radio airplay, maybe there was just a little bit of fatigue. They're like, I've owned this album for 18 months or 24 months. I've been listening to it start to finish. I know all the words to all the songs. I know Thriller. I like Thriller. And maybe people just didn't realize that it hadn't already been released as a quote unquote official single, but it only reached number 4. Blew my mind when I saw that. Described as a mix of disco and funk. And I think very much like you said with your other one from his Off the Wall album, this is what 80s music, this is what 80s music's all about. You think 80s music, you think Michael Jackson, Duran Duran, Madonna, in that order. And this is the Michael Jackson song. This is the go-to that people say. With, and like you said, you ask 100 people, what's Michael Jackson's number 1 song? 99 of the 100 are going to say Thriller. I can't believe that you're the 1 out of 100 in this regard. This is something 80s. I thought, well, this is 80s. Chris is going to give us all the textbot answers.
But I wanted to get away from the textbook.
Okay. We'll give you a chance in a minute.
I think my number 1 is justifiable. I really do.
Yeah. Anyway, you hit on a bunch of my notes here. We talked about the video with John Landis. The other thing about Thriller that, again, I'm sure people are aware of, it has the spoken word sequence by Vincent Price. And I believe this was recorded just before the death of Vincent Price. Like, I don't think he did much after this. He did Edward Scissorhand. He had a little part at the beginning, which I think was his very last performance. But this was certainly, an excellent finish to a fantastic career by an excellent performer.
And Rick Baker too. Rick Baker did the mask, the
werewolf
stuff.
makeup. Yeah, it's like, oh my god! Like, it's got the quote Thriller dance sequence of the dancing zombies, which people do on YouTube all the time. You see it parodied. You see world records. There's like prisoners somewhere in Asia had like thousands of prisoners doing the Michael Jackson dance, and you see it on Halloween. People dress up and they do the dance, and it's a pop culture phenomenon. I'm still absolutely shocked this wasn't your number 1. Let me think. What else do we got here that you haven't already mentioned? After the video was released, the sales of the Thriller album doubled, and they credited that 100% to the video. Because again, by then, there had been 7. This was the 7th single. People who wanted the album owned it by now. And then this video came out, and it reached a whole new audience. People were like, okay, I got to buy this album. Doubled the album sales after the video, which is craziness. The Library of Congress has described it as the most famous music video of all time.
Oh, for sure.
For the Michael Jackson Thriller. I can't think of anything else to say about it.
They always play it at Halloween. It's a Halloween staple.
Yeah, it is a Michael Jackson legacy song. It is so good. It is definitely of its time. There's no way you play this today and people don't immediately say, well, that's clearly from the 80s. But it's from the 80s in the best possible way. Michael Jackson, Thriller, number 1 song of all time in my mind, and 99 other people out of 100. But not for Chris. Chris is going to go with I'm the hardcover textbook. You're going to go with the softcover textbook. Let's hear your number 1.
Well, here we go for my number 1. We've mentioned ad nauseum that Thriller is the song that most people associate with Michael Jackson, but for me, it's Billie Jean. Now, before I got into the academic world, I was on the radio, and I used to DJ events like weddings and parties and stuff like that. And let me tell you, Billie Jean was just as popular at those events, when I was DJing as it was back in 1982 when it came out on the Thrill album. The opening bass riff, the drums, the synth, it turns into one of the greatest dance songs of all time, which is a little surprising because when you think of sort of quote unquote dance songs, you usually think of songs that are a little bit more upbeat and higher tempo. But let me tell you, as a DJ, if I wanted to pack the dance floor, Billie Jean always did the trick. And the dancing that Michael Jackson does in the video revolutionized the music industry. It caused music videos to replace songs as the number one way people consumed music in the 80s. And another thing about the song is that it really transformed Michael Jackson's career because he was still coming off the 70s when he was the little kid brother fronting the Jackson 5. And with this song, he's singing about a woman who's accusing him of fathering her child. So it's a transition for him into more mature music writing. Just about everything about this song is just off the charts. It's a great song. It's got great dancing. It gets people up dancing. It embodies everything about Michael Jackson into 4 minutes of disco, R&B, and dance, just mixed, all kind of rolled up into one. When I think of Michael Jackson, I always think of Billie Jean. And for me, that's what the spirit of this topic tonight on this podcast is all about. So that's why it's number one on my list.
Yeah, that's a great pick. It's a great song. I don't necessarily know if it's number one. I think a lot of people will certainly have it in their top 5. I really struggle to not have it in my top 5. I felt with Thriller and Beat It already in there.
Right.
Throwing Billie Jean in was just, fuel on the fire. And I kind of thought you might have it on your list. I did not expect it to be at number 1.
It is. That's the one.
I think part of it for me was, when I listened to this song when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, like when it was big, I had no concept of what the lyrics were about. I knew all the words.
I don't think I didn't.
Sang all the words. Yep. But as a youngster, I had no idea that's what. Even the video reflects the lyrics. Like if you watch the video now, understanding and realizing what the song's about, the video makes sense. It's, the paparazzi follows him to the house and tries to take the illicit photos to demonstrate and prove he's having this affair with this woman. And it's like, it totally lost on me as a young person. I didn't understand it. It was not something that I had any familiarity with. All I remember was that as he walked, like the steps would light up. And again, with the visuals, he's in like the black suit and he does the whole dance move where he goes up on his toes. So it was, again, like the signature style. And if I remember correctly, when he performed this song at the Grammys or the AMAs, it was the first time he had ever debuted the moonwalk. And
I think he did it at the Grammys or something like that. He did it on stage. People went nuts.
Their mind.
Yeah, they went crazy.
What did I just see? And that became like his staple move. Yep. And there's definitely a lot to like about this song, Billie Jean.
It's justifiable. It's justifiable.
Yeah, it's definitely justified to make the top 5. Yeah. I still can't believe you have Billie Jean over Thriller, but
I do.
That's fair enough. And I think some people are going to say, I can't believe you have Thriller over Beat It on my list. I know Beat It is a big hit for a lot of people.
No, that's down the list for me.
I think it's usually between Billie Jean and Thriller are usually they're sort of the top 2 that people throw around as sort of what is Michael Jackson's biggest song, best song, biggest hit. We always have this discussion when we've been with a group of people and you have a few beverages, you sort of throw at an artist and you go, what's their biggest song? And then you start saying, like, is it what sold the most albums, what peaked on the charts? And we're just like, no, like if I throw out a band to you and I say, Queen, go, best song ever. And then, anyone who doesn't say Bohemian Rhapsody is wrong and you tell them why. But with Michael Jackson, you say, Michael Jackson, best song, go. I think the room's going to be pretty even divided. A lot of people are going to go to Thriller, but you're going to have a handful of people going to Billie Jean, and that's going to be a real discussion.
Yeah.
You're going to
be busy. It shouldn't be that surprising to you that I went with it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, on that note, let's have some fun with Caveman. Okay, so you mentioned earlier how Michael Jackson kind of ascended to the level of the Beatles, in terms of his accomplishments in the music industry. Because I think when you think of musical greatness, it's Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else, right? So we're going to play a game tonight called Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else. I'm going to give you a fact, And all you have to do is tell me if it has to do with Michael Jackson or the Beatles or someone else. Okay? So you got it? Okay. So what is the single that spent the most weeks at number 1 on the Billboard chart? Was it Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
I think it was someone else.
Bonus points if you can tell me who spent more weeks at number 1
Is
on the
it
Billboard
White
chart.
Christmas by Bing Crosby?
No, I'm sorry. It was actually Lil Nas featuring Billy Ray Cyrus with Old Town Road.
From last year, really?
Yeah, 19 weeks. What the hell is music coming to these days? Gosh, I tell you. All right. Who had the most number 1 singles of all time? Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
Michael Jackson.
No, I'm sorry. It was the Beatles with 20.
What's the Beatles?
The Beatles with 20.
Oh, because as we said, like Thriller never reached number 1 and Man in the Mirror never reached number 1.
All right. Most number 1 singles in a calendar year. Was it Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
I'm trying to think of that stat I threw it earlier where it was I think it was 7 top 10 singles. I don't think it was 7 number 1s. In a calendar year.
Yeah. Most number 1 singles in a calendar year.
We talked about Michael Jackson's consistency. I'm going to say Michael Jackson.
It was the Beatles with 6 in 1964. They had I Want to Hold Your Hand, She Loves You, Can't Buy Me Love, Love Me Do, Hard Day's Night, and I Feel Fine. All number 1 in 1964. Go
I never heard any of those songs.
Yeah. Who knows? Okay. Which artist has had the most singles that made the top 10? Was it Michael Jackson,
That's
the
gotta be
Beatles,
Michael
or
Jackson.
someone else?
That's got to be Michael Jackson.
I'm sorry, it was Madonna.
Oh,
With
we already mentioned Madonna.
38 songs of hers have made the top 10. Crazy.
Wow.
Okay. 13 times in history, Derek, a musical artist or a group has had consecutive number 1 singles. So in other words, they had the number 1 single on the Billboard chart only to be replaced by another one of their own songs, rather than someone else to be number 1. However,
I just read about this somewhere. Yeah. Okay.
only once in history has a musical artist ever had 3 consecutive number 1 singles, one right after the other. Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else.
No, this sounds very familiar. Like I read a lot of websites where they're like useless trivia fact of the day, and I think this came up sometime in the last year. And I remember, I want to say it was Madonna as well, so I'm going to say it was someone else.
It was the Beatles.
Oh, for frig's sake!
I Want to Hold Your Hand, She Loves You, and Can't Buy Me Love. From March to April 1964. Okay. Only once in history has an artist or a group held the top 5 songs all at the same time. Was it Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
Okay, there's no way that was Michael Jackson. The singles weren't released close enough together for them to be that popular for that long. So I'm going to stick with the popular answer here, and I'm going to go with the Beatles. But it's probably Elvis, but I'm going to go with the Beatles.
You are correct. On April the 4th, 1964, the Beatles had the top 5 songs. Can't Buy Me Love, Twist and Shout, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and Please Please Me. Crazy.
Jeez.
Crazy.
Now, hey, in all fairness,
Yep.
when the Beatles were around, there were a lot fewer musical artists. So I think that has something to do with this here. Now, I'm not belittling their accomplishment. That's still fantastic, and the music is great. But when you have less variety, of course, there's a greater likelihood you're going to have more songs on the charts at one time. So I'm just throwing that out there.
You got it right. It's all good. Okay. The best-selling album of all time belongs to what artist? Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
No, that's got to be Michael Jackson.
Yes, you are correct. It's
Finally,
Thriller.
Michael Jackson.
Thriller
Was
by
Thriller?
Michael Jackson.
It had to be Thriller.
Best-selling album of all time. Okay. The best-selling single of all time belongs to which artist? Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
No, I got to think that's someone else.
Yes, you are correct. Bonus points if you know the best-selling single of all time.
Before or after 2000?
Before.
It's not the White Christmas I already said, is it?
It is White Christmas by Bing Crosby. Very
there we
good.
go.
Congratulations. All right. Adjusted for inflation, what artist had the highest grossing tour of all time? Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
Well, I'm confident that Michael Jackson would have made more than the Beatles. It's just a matter of whether or not somebody else more recently, like maybe U2.
That's why I adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, because I know those Jackson tours were usually long, and the tickets were probably reasonably priced for the 80s, but with inflation, as opposed to today, the prices are just so much higher. I'm trying to think of who is more like I know U2 made a ridiculous amount of money on their last tour. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna keep saying Michael Jackson. I'm going with Michael Jackson.
It was U2.
Oh, what you? Oh my God! Second down.
Yeah, they made over $800 million from 2009 to 2011. Okay.
So that was for me. I went to see them.
Yeah. What artist or group's studio album holds the record for the longest run at number one on the charts with, unbelievable, 37 consecutive weeks at number one? Was it Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else? Oh. Number one album, 37 weeks.
Well, we've already talked ad nauseum about how Michael Jackson's songs just had single after single after single. And I remember looking at the dates of the releases, and they were released far enough apart that there certainly could have been 37 consecutive weeks, you said?
Yeah, 37 consecutive weeks for the album itself to be number one.
Yeah. Sorry, at number one or just on the chart?
Number one.
I mean, the Beatles were great, but I don't see them being there for that long with one album. Now, was it Michael Jackson or who else could it have been? If it wasn't Michael Jackson, it was probably someone more recent. Again, I'm going to lean on someone like Madonna, but let's say Michael Jackson.
You are correct. It's Thriller.
It was Thriller. Okay,
yes.
Good. Okay. Making me second guess myself again.
That's the whole point of the game. Okay, with over 1,600 versions of the song, the most recorded song of all time belongs to which artist? Michael Jackson, the Beatles,
for sure,
or someone else?
It's got to be the Beatles.
Yes, it is. Bonus points if you know the song.
It's it's a song where they repeat the lyrics all the time because there's that Venn diagram where it's just like it's not going to come to me.
Right. It's Yesterday by the Beatles.
Oh, that's not the one I thought. Okay.
Yeah. This is the last one. Okay. Last question. What artist has sold more albums in the United States than any other artist in history? Michael Jackson, the Beatles, or someone else?
In the United States.
The United States.
Well, Michael Jackson is American. The Beatles are not. So I got to think that gives him the edge there. Now the real question is, has there been a newer performer who has sold? Sorry, what was it? Most albums, most singles, or most money? What are you asking?
What artist has sold the most albums in the United States?
So I think that for the last 15 years, albums are not really a stat that would matter. So it would definitely be Michael Jackson, or it would be someone from the 90s. I got to think it's Michael Jackson. I'm going to go with Michael Jackson.
It was Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks.
But he's American, right?
Yeah, he's American.
Yeah, there we go. See, my logic was correct.
Yeah, they like that kind of music down there. Go figure. Okay, so you did pretty good. You know, it was a tough one. You know, I thought I made it easy. I give you 1 of 3 chance on every question, but some of them were a little tricky. You know, but definitely it just goes to show, and an artist like Michael Jackson is just up there in the the pantheon. You know, with the Beatles and everybody else. You know, it's just incredible the amount of records and all-time sales that this guy's had. Oh, it's just crazy. Yep. Good choice this week, coming up with it.
Well, thank you.
No, good job.
All right, what are we doing next week?
Next week I'm going to have to give you a movie. I'm still right down to the wire trying to decide between these two movies of which one I'm going to give you. Last week I gave you a science fiction movie, and this one's a little bit science fiction-y, but I'm going to still stick with that kind of genre somewhat, and I'm going to stay with the 1983 film War Games.
Okay. Matthew Broderick?
Matthew Broderick, yep. So you got to watch.
Who was the female lead in that?
It was Ali Sheedy.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I couldn't picture who it was. I knew it was, okay.
From The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire. So, yeah, it was one of her first movies.
I have seen War Games, but I think the last time I saw War Games would have been 20 or more years. It's been a long time.
So anyway, this is your chance to go back and watch a movie from 1983, War Games. And we'll come back and we'll review that. So you're up for the challenge?
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. I think it'll be a good one to go back and watch. I was really torn, even right down to the wire. Which movie am I going to give you? But
I'll save your other choice, and we can do that one next time.
We'll be doing that next time around, that's for sure. And if you want to reach out to Derek, you'll find him on Twitter at Amaron_DM. You'll find me at C. McBrien. And popgoesyourworld.com is our website. If you'd like to contact us, you can reach out to us there. In the meantime, this is Chris McBrien for Derek Myers saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.